Welcome back, folks, to the final lesson of Module 1. My name is Tobias, and I'll be discussing the 5 leadership styles. At this point, you've worked to better understand your why of why you're getting involved in this advocacy work or particular issue. You've done some research on what is currently happening on the issue, and you've looked up some potential folks who are already doing work around it. The next thing to think about is what leadership looks like for you, and really understanding what your leadership style is. So first, what does a leader look like? Who do you envision as a leader? What qualities does that particular leader have? What skills do they possess? And if I were to ask you, are you a leader? Would you say yes or no? Spoiler alert, the answer should be yes. Anybody in this space can be a great leader. What we want you to understand is people show up with very different leadership styles and in very different ways, and that all of those ways in which folks show up contribute to the power of the group. Not everybody leads in the same way, and that's a good thing. So we're going to go through these 5 leadership styles to give you a better sense of how you show up as a leader based on the skills that you already have and that are natural to you. First, we want to do a quick activity. This will be a self-assessment of your leadership skills. We want you to pause this video and take 2 minutes to write down 3 to 5 leadership skills that you already possess and that you show up with in any part of your life, with your family, at work, in your community, etc. Those could be, I'm a really good people person and I can talk to anybody, or I'm really good with numbers and data. Both of those are great leadership skills. So take 2 minutes to write down 3 to 5 skills you think you naturally possess. Pause the video here and hit play when you're ready to move on. Hopefully you got a few skills written down. Maybe you were even able to get more than 5. So now we're going to jump into the 5 leadership styles that are often seen in the advocacy and organizing space. As I mentioned, there are a variety of ways to show up as a leader based on your passion and your strengths. The 5 we're going to go over today are these: task leader, strategic leader, process leader, ethical leader, and visionary leader. All of these types of leaders bring different skill sets and are all necessary to run effective communities, organizations, efforts, and activities. You can't just have one of these leaders show up and expect that the effort is going to be run successfully, because all of these leadership styles have both their strengths and their weaknesses. We're going to walk through what those are now. First, we'll look at the task leader. The task leader is often somebody whose strength is really to focus on the step-by-step actions that need to happen in order to produce the results or outcomes you all are trying to achieve. They're often very good project managers, and they really help drive the project from inception to completion by leveraging their attention to detail and understanding all of the different tasks that need to be done. This person is ideal for crisis responses. For example, if rapid response organizing is needed, their ability to project manage under stress is a huge strength for them. Or if they're given a particular goal, like running a voter registration drive, their ability to step in and think through what it's going to take from day one to completion to get that voter registration drive up and running is a really great strength. They know that when you are throwing an event, you need somebody who's going to be there early to set up and folks who are going to be there after to take things down. They already have a checklist of all the different things that you need to bring to the event, from the table to the signage, water bottles, clipboards, or pens. They have a really great attention to detail that gets things done and lets them project manage things through completion in a very successful and efficient way. Sometimes a challenge for this type of leader is they may overlook the process of how folks are getting there, and or they're so focused on what their immediate goal, action, effort, or task at hand is that they lose sight of the long-term vision in the work that they're doing. This is normal, and it's why we need checks and balances with different leadership styles. We've talked about some examples of task leadership, and here's one more. A field director who's running multiple campuses or phone banks and a rock star coordinating them to hit benchmarks is a great example of a task leader. Next, we have strategic leaders. Strategic leaders are often the people who are thinking big picture. They're looking at the full puzzle and understand how all the different pieces of the campaign, effort, or organization all fit together. They're aligning the tactics to hit both the short-term needs and the long-term goals, and really have an understanding of why and how they are going to achieve those goals. Top strengths for a strategic leader are they're really essential when you're thinking through long-term campaigns. Those could be policy initiatives, those could be community awareness or organizing events. But for multi-year or even multi-month initiatives, having a strategic leader on your team is going to be really helpful to keep an eye on that bigger picture. And similar to the task manager, really understand what's the timeline, the efforts, the inflection points, and the metrics you'll use to track progress. Now, some challenges for this particular type of leadership, they can get really stuck in the planning without starting the action that you need to gather momentum. They may need help getting the ball rolling, or else they might end up planning forever. An example of this type of leadership is potentially a nonprofit director, maybe a campaign director, or an advocacy director at an organization who thinks in terms of year-long plans. The next leader is the process leader. You might be a process leader if you're a real people person who can read the energy of a room by how people are engaging or not engaging with what is currently happening. The process leader is motivated by making people feel seen and heard, and their goal is getting people to want to engage further. Some strengths, the process leader understands how to get folks through an activity, an effort, an action in a way that feels engaging for them, in a way that feels supportive of them. This work is not necessarily directly achieving the goal, but it's the means by which you maintain momentum towards that goal. And some challenges. They're much more focused on the journey of how we get there than the end goal itself. So sometimes they may lose sight of that goal, and you need the strategic leader or the task leader to come in and say, this is all well and fun that we want to make sure everybody is eating and having a good time, but they're really here to actually phone bank or canvas. An example, think about a volunteer supervisor or coordinator who gets to know each volunteer and understands how to keep them engaged over the entire effort or campaign. This is likely a really great place for someone who identifies as a process leader. Our next leader is the ethical leader. It's really great to have an ethical leader in your space to ensure you don't lose sight of your core values, that you don't get lost in the process, and you're doing the work in a way that is in alignment with your values and the integrity of your group or your organization. This particular type of leader leads with integrity and transparency, prioritizing things like inclusion, equity, fairness, all things ethical. They ensure that you're not replicating the same harm you're working to fix just to get a win. Strengths are the ethical leader can help build trust in a polarized environment. They have the ability to deeply question whether or not activities and efforts are in alignment with their values, and if those values themselves really align with the communities you're working on behalf of. Something like mediating conflict is a really strong suit for them because they do it from a place of transparency, integrity, and fairness. Challenges for the ethical leader are they might struggle with problematic compromises. That could look like a funder who's going to fund a particular program may also have some ties to organizations we may not align with or agree with, or a partner organization that aligns with you on this policy, but not others. Do we take those resources or not to help us achieve the goals that we're trying to achieve? This leader can get caught up in the weeds of every little ethical dilemma without seeing how compromises are needed to strategically hit that bigger goal to move us towards the long-term vision. An example of where this leader may shine is as a community organizer who ensures marginalized voices are leading the movement. This person may be focused on centering those who are directly impacted by the issues that you're working on. If you are somebody who's constantly thinking about how systems are disproportionately impacting folks in particular ways, either limiting opportunities or giving folks privilege, if you're looking at the different intersectionalities of how types of oppression happen to communities, if you're constantly questioning where and how resources are being spent or raised, you might consider yourself an ethical leader. Last but not least, we have the visionary leader. The visionary leader is constantly thinking about how to make the world a better place and is able to articulate that through inspiring storytelling or bold ideas. We often see these folks as the face of a movement, an organization, or a campaign. They're the person who can really inspire others to take action based on the way that they articulate a vision for the future. For strengths, what the visionary leader brings to the table is the ability to mobilize large groups of people around really complex or tough problems with creative, idealistic, innovative solutions that they may not have thought of before. This leader is really the person that galvanizes folks and builds momentum as they're moving towards larger change. For challenges, this leader, because they are in that visionary, long-term, down-the-line mentality, they may not be as connected to the day-to-day tasks that the team is focused on. They may need support to ground them in what's happening with our community, our supporters, and the efforts that we're undertaking today. Attention to detail or connecting with the day-to-day work may be a challenge for this particular type of leader. An example of a visionary leader is a candidate who's running for office. They're articulating a transformative vision for addressing large systemic issues. Maybe it's homelessness, climate change, or police reform. They are the visionary leader for your campaign. Now it's time for another activity. For this activity, I want you to think and reflect on these 5 leadership styles and decide for yourself which leadership style you most embody and what that means for you and the movements you are and will be part of. Answer these questions. Which leadership style are you? Now, you may see yourself in more than one, but I would encourage you to pick the one that feels the most like you. How do you show up as this type of leader? What are some challenges for this type of leader? And what leadership styles might you have tension with? Hit pause on this video and resume it when you're ready to move on. Surprise! It's time for another activity. This time you're going to answer some questions about the leadership style furthest from your natural alignment. Answer these questions. Which leadership style is least you? What can you learn from this leadership style? Is there something that you're not seeing or that is a challenge for you that they may be able to support you with? Are there people you've worked with in the past who are this leadership style? And what about this leadership style makes it the least like you? Once again, please pause here until you're ready to move on. And for the final activity of this lesson, we're going to look at how you can practice new leadership styles to develop your overall leadership ability. Answer these questions. Which leadership style do you want to practice? Why do you want to practice this style? Is it a skill set you want to learn? Is it a perspective you want to see? What are ways you can intentionally step into this leadership style? If you're a process leader, maybe it's sitting in on some of the strategic meetings that are happening with the group or organization you're volunteering for. Similarly, if you're a visionary leader, maybe it's going back and actually helping to coordinate or run a phone bank or a canvas or an event that puts you really in the project management seat. Is there anyone you know with this style who you can learn from? And pause here until you're ready to move on. Thank you for completing those exercises. Hopefully, you've learned quite a bit about yourself and how to grow as a leader through understanding your natural strengths and developing new skill sets and ways of approaching your work. Let's recap today's lesson. Reflect on these particular leadership styles and know how you show up as a leader. You've learned which style feels most close to what you do, and now you have a sense of what your strengths within that leadership style are. You also know where you might need some support in showing up as a leader from some of the other leadership styles. Remember that everybody can be a leader, and leadership shows up in different ways and in different situations. Think also about how you borrow from other folks' strengths and understand who you need in a space to complement your strengths. This is going to help you build successful teams as you are organizing the community. You can find your homework for this lesson below.